Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a recent address from former President Trump about the conflict with Iran. He made some really bold claims, and we're here to unpack exactly what was said and how that argument was put together. So, the address kicked off with this single, incredibly powerful statement. Right from the very start, the tone was set. This wasn't going to be just a progress report. It was being framed as a declaration of total and complete victory. To really get our heads around this, we're going to look at 5 key pieces. What he called the full force campaign, the specific results that were claimed, the focus on the super important Strait of Hormuz, a pretty direct message to allies, and then finally, that paper tiger verdict. First up, the full force campaign. This section is all about the big picture. So let's dig into how this whole operation was described and what its goals were supposed to be right from the get-go. The core message was actually pretty simple. This entire campaign was meant to put an end to a threat that, according to the speaker, has been hanging around for decades. So the action was really presented as the final chapter to an old problem. And to back that up, the address laid out some sweeping claims of damage. The argument was that Iran's key military assets, we're talking everything from their air force and navy to radar and anti-air systems, were pretty much wiped out. It really paints a picture of a decisive, all-encompassing operation. Okay, so we've heard the broad strokes. Now let's get into the hard data. This is where we start to see the specific numbers that were used to support all these claims. It's where the story gets some stats behind it. So the first huge figure that was dropped was this one, over 7,000 strikes. This number was really put forward as clear evidence of the sheer scale and intensity of the military campaign. Now here's where it gets really interesting, how they visualize the results. The address reported a 90% drop in ballistic missile launches and an absolutely staggering 95% drop in drone attacks. The suggestion here is that Iran's ability to strike back had been seriously crippled. And the impact on Iran's navy was also given a number. Over 100 vessels were claimed to be taken out of commission in just a week and a half. The address also hinted at a longer-term play here. It wasn't just about taking out the weapons they have now, but also about hitting their industrial base to stop Iran from just rebuilding its missile and drone programs down the road. All right, next up, the speech completely pivots its focus to this one critical spot on the map, the Strait of Hormuz. It's an absolutely vital channel for global energy and, well, a massive point of geopolitical tension. So the speaker framed the strait as more than just a simple waterway. It was described as an economic weapon, a tool of leverage that Iran has apparently used for years. And so the military action was presented as a way of taking that weapon away. And this chart illustrates the core of the speaker's whole next argument beautifully. According to the numbers presented, other nations are extremely reliant on the strait. You've got Japan at 95%, China at 90%. And that's a world away from the US, which has a stated dependency of less than 1%. So the crucial takeaway here is this stark contrast that was drawn between America's energy independence and the deep dependence of some of its key partners around the world. And that difference, well, it formed the entire basis for the next part of the speech. Yeah, this big difference in who needs the strait leads us directly into the next section, a very direct and, you could say, pretty blunt call for allied nations to step up and help share the security load. The address went on to detail this call to action and the, let's say, mixed responses that were apparently received. It was pointed out that while some countries were ready to help, others, even some that were described as being protected by the US for decades, were a bit hesitant. And this quote was used to really capture that personal frustration being aimed at certain unnamed allies. It frames the whole thing not just as a strategic request, but as a matter of, you owe us. So, where does all this lead? After laying out the campaign, the numbers, and the frustration with allies, we finally get to the big conclusion, the final verdict on Iran's power. The speaker made a huge point of highlighting just how rapid and dramatic this change in assessment was. The argument was basically that, 2 weeks ago, Iran was a real threat, but this recent military action had completely and fundamentally changed that reality. And there it is. This was the ultimate thesis of the entire address. The term paper tiger, something that looks scary but is actually weak, was used to sum up the speaker's view of the conflict's decisive end. And that brings our breakdown to a close. The address laid out this really clear story of military victory, ending with that paper tiger verdict. The question this all leaves us with is simple, but it's a huge one. What happens next when one world power declares another one powerless?